Congratulations! You awaken to the sounds and smells of 15th century London, the year 1447. The city is alive with clatter and chatter, a maze of narrow, twisting streets lined with timber-framed houses. Smoke rises from countless hearths, mingling with the pungent odors of rotting refuse and the stagnant waters of the Thames, which serves as both water source and sewer. Horse-drawn carts clatter over cobblestones, and street vendors call out their wares. Yet, the sights and sounds are overshadowed by a pressing fear. You have been accused of treason against King Henry VI, a charge as false as it is dangerous. In this city, whispers and intrigue often matter more than truth. Your heart pounds as the Iman warders arrive, their leather armor and polished metal shining faintly in the morning light. These are not ordinary soldiers. They are elite guards, veterans loyal to the crown, trained to maintain the secrecy and security of the tower. You are led through the stone gatehouse, a structure built for intimidation, its walls thick and imposing. The air grows colder as you pass through narrow corridors, and the weight of countless eyes seems to follow you. Every step echoes ominously against the stone floor, reminding you that escape is not an option. The tower's gates close behind you with a deep, final thud. The descent begins. You step onto worn stone stairs, each one uneven and slick with centuries of wear. The torchlight flickers against the damp, glistening walls, and the air grows heavy with a cold, musty smell. Narrow passages force you to stoop, and your every movement is accompanied by the faint dripping of water and the rustle of rats in the corners. The metallic tang of iron and decay grows stronger with each step, and your stomach twists as the reality of your imprisonment settles in. Ahead lies a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron bands, the threshold to the depths of the tower's most feared secrets. With a screech that echoes like a scream, the heavy door swings open. Beyond is a vast chamber, windowless and dimly lit by sputtering torches. Shadows dance across the rough stone walls, and the air carries a sickly metallic sweetness that makes your stomach churn. You realize this is no ordinary cell. It is a chamber designed to instill terror, a place where the human body and spirit are tested to their limits. Every instrument within whispers a history of suffering, and the atmosphere itself seems alive with the echoes of past cries. In the center of the room stands a device that commands attention and dread: the rack, known grimly as the Duke of Exat's daughter. This instrument is a rectangular wooden frame, its rollers ready to stretch the human body. Ropes dangle, connected to manacles for wrists and ankles, promising agony to anyone who is bound. The rack was introduced in England in 1420, a tool of precise, calculated torment. It stretches the body to the edge of endurance, dislocating joints and tearing muscles without immediate death. Here, pain is a language, and the rack speaks fluently. Along the walls, a horrifying array of other devices is displayed. Thumb screws lie ready to crush fingers, the scavenger's daughter promises compression to the body, and manacles dangle ominously from hooks. Irons, pliers, and knives hint at purposes best left unknown. Each instrument is meticulously designed to elicit pain, to break not just the body but the will of those who stand accused. The room is a testament to the grim ingenuity of those who see suffering as a tool for truth, or power, or vengeance. The Iman warders are more than guards. They are custodians of fear, trained and seasoned. Their loyalty to the crown is absolute. Their presence ensures that the horrors within these walls remain hidden from the outside world. They move silently, observing, ready to enforce obedience or carry out commands without hesitation. Their faces reveal little emotion, yet their posture alone communicates authority and control. You feel the weight of their eyes, each glance a reminder of the consequences that await the slightest misstep. The air itself seems to conspire against you. Damp stone mingles with mold, human waste, and that metallic, sickly sweet scent that signals iron and blood. Each breath carries a memory of past torments, searing your senses with a visceral warning. The torchlight flickers against wet walls, creating distorted shapes that seem to move with malevolent intent. In this dungeon, even silence is oppressive. You are acutely aware of every drop of water, every rat scuttling, every creak of stone under unseen weight. This is a space where fear becomes tangible, almost physical. This chamber has existed in some form since the reign of King Edward I, nearly 2 centuries ago. Through the reigns of kings and queens, it has been a stage for the dark arts of coercion, where justice and vengeance blur. The rack, the thumbscrews, the scavenger's daughter, all are tools perfected over decades to enforce loyalty or extract confessions. Each mark, each scar left behind tells a story of fear, politics, and survival. To be brought here is to enter a continuum of history where power dictates truth and cruelty is an art form. As you stand in the heart of the tower's darkest depths, the weight of history presses down. The tools, the walls, the cold air, all serve as reminders of a world where fear and loyalty intertwine. You are alone with your thoughts, the echoes of centuries of suffering whispering from every corner. Yet within this darkness there is also clarity. History is alive here, and it is relentless. Every stone, every iron band, every drop of water carries the memory of those who came before, and a silent warning of what may come. The chamber is designed to work on your mind before it works on your body. Every device, every shadow, every damp corner exists to instill fear and break your will. This psychological manipulation has a name: Tricio Reles. It is a calculated part of the torture process, intended to make prisoners confess before physical harm begins. The human mind is often more vulnerable than the body. The threat, the anticipation, the knowledge of what could come, this is the first weapon wielded here. You feel it now, pressing on your thoughts, clouding reason with dread. 2 men stand before you. Sir John Plett, lieutenant of the tower, oversees high-profile prisoners with a calm, measured authority. Beside him is Master Edward Dalton, the king's official torturer, broad-shouldered with calloused hands, a man whose profession is extracting confessions with skill and detachment. Dalton is not a brute. He is a professional following centuries of codified practice. Medieval torture is not arbitrary cruelty. It is a regulated process, part of the justice system. Their eyes are steady, their presence both reassuring and terrifying, a balance of procedure and threat. "Do you know why you are here?" Sir John asks, voice surprisingly gentle. Before you answer, he continues. "You stand accused of conspiring against King Henry VI. Treason carries the penalty of death, yet a confession now may spare you the worst. You protest your innocence, but Sir John merely sighs. They all say that at first," he murmurs. Dalton steps forward, impassive, as if introducing a lesson in procedure rather than pain. The chamber becomes a theater where words and fear are as powerful as any instrument. Master Dalton begins to explain the process. The exam rigorosum, a rigorous examination. First you are stripped and bound. Then questions are asked again. If cooperation fails, the lesser torches are employed. Simple but effective devices like the thumbscrew. Metal bars tighten around thumbs or fingers until bones crack. Most prisoners speak before this stage. Dalton's calm, methodical explanation chills you more than any physical threat. Here pain is procedural, controlled, inevitable. Each stage is designed to escalate only if prior compliance is refused. Dalton demonstrates the lesser torches, devices meant to break a prisoner gradually. The thumb screw compresses fingers, causing sharp, acute pain. He places it on the table with deliberate care, as if setting down a tool rather than a weapon. Then he moves to the rack, the final stage if the lesser torches fail. Each lever, each rope, is a mechanism of escalating agony. You are shown the progression: pain, joint dislocation, eventual separation if resistance persists. The methodical nature of this process turns terror into inevitability. Dalton speaks clinically, detailing the mechanics as if discussing a craft. First comes pain, then dislocation, eventually limbs may separate, he explains. His detached tone unnerves you more than the threat itself. This is not personal. It is procedure, perfected over generations. The chamber is a machine for truth, operating with precision and efficiency. You realize that fear is part of the method. The anticipation of agony is its own punishment. Each instrument, each word, works together to break your resolve before physical harm begins. Sir John leans closer, his voice low and steady. The mind breaks before the body for most. He explains how prisoners endure months or years in darkness, with minimal sustenance, where time loses all meaning. Sleep becomes torture. Silence becomes a companion. The world shrinks to stone walls and the instruments of fear. The psychological torment often achieves what physical pain alone cannot. Even the strongest resolve may crumble under isolation, uncertainty, and relentless questioning. Consider Cuthbert Simpson, a Protestant deacon arrested a century later under Queen Mary Tudor. Simpson endured the rack 3 times, an arrow driven through his fingers, yet he never broke. His reward for extraordinary courage was a public execution, burned alive at Smithfield in 1558. This story serves as a warning. The chamber is indiscriminate. Religious dissenters, political prisoners, traitors, none are exempt. Each person who enters leaves changed, whether through confession, endurance, or death. The torture chamber is not reserved solely for those with differing beliefs. Political rivals, spies, rebels, and anyone accused of treason can find themselves here. The justice system of medieval England intertwines with fear and power, and the chamber enforces compliance with meticulous precision. Every tool, every procedure is designed for maximum psychological effect. Even before the first rope is tightened, prisoners often surrender their secrets, anticipating the inevitable rigor and escalation. As you absorb the reality of the chamber, you feel the weight of centuries pressing down. Every stone, every iron instrument, every whisper of the past tells a story of fear, courage, and survival. History is not distant here, it is alive. The psychological and physical mechanisms of torture have been refined over generations, a stark reminder of the power wielded by kings and the vulnerability of those caught in their schemes. Your mind races, wondering if courage, cunning, or confession will define your fate. "One last chance," Sir John says, voice calm but resolute. "Confess now. Name your co-conspirators, and you may earn the king's mercy." You stand at a crossroads. Resistance is possible, but the chamber has been built to strip hope from even the strongest minds. Every shadow, every device, every chill in the air conspires to convince you that submission is the only option. Torture in the tower is a combination of physical agony and psychological terror, each carefully orchestrated to break both body and spirit before the first lever is turned. Master Dalton approaches with unsettling calmness. Unlike the sadistic Bishop Bonner, who will earn a dark reputation during Queen Mary's reign, Dalton feels nothing but professional detachment. This is his duty to the crown, to extract information necessary for the security of the realm. Each movement is precise, efficient, rehearsed. There is no cruelty in his eyes, only the focus of a craftsman at work. For him, the instruments are tools, the procedures are protocols, and the prisoner's agony is merely a necessary part of the process. In theory, torture in England is regulated. A warrant is required, often signed by members of the Privy Council. It is intended only for treason, and only to extract information, not to punish. Yet these distinctions offer little comfort to anyone bound and helpless on the rack. Here the law and terror are intertwined. The body is viewed as a path to truth, and those in charge believe that breaking the body will inevitably reveal it. Innocence or guilt matters little. The process itself is a form of enforcement and intimidation. The guards move with quiet efficiency, removing your clothing. The cold air of the chamber bites at your bare skin. Your wrists are secured in manacles with a decisive click. Each moment reinforces your powerlessness. The process is both physical and psychological. The mind begins to grasp the inevitability of what is to come. The knowledge that escape or resistance is futile becomes almost tangible. This initial exposure, cold, confined, vulnerable, is a technique as old as the tower itself, designed to weaken resolve before the first instrument of pain is applied. Dalton selects a pair of thumb screws with deliberate care. Small, simple devices, yet remarkably effective. Metal bars connected by screws, each capable of crushing the bones of a thumb or finger. Most confess before the screws are fully applied. Dalton's calm explanation contrasts sharply with the horror of the act. Simple yet effective, he says, placing them on the table. The chamber is silent except for the distant drip of water and the faint shuffle of rats. Even the smallest tool here holds immense power over a person's will. It is not the devices alone that terrify, but the knowledge of their effect. Each instrument in this chamber carries centuries of history, each scar on its surface a record of suffering. The mind imagines the pain in advance, a mental torture preceding the physical. Fear builds as Dalton moves with precise efficiency, demonstrating the inevitability of the process. You realize that in the tower, anticipation itself is a weapon. Even before the screws tighten, your body reacts, muscles tensing, heart pounding, every nerve alert to the impending agony. Dalton applies the thumb screws to your fingers. Slowly, methodically, he turns the screws. Pressure builds. Your bones protest, nerves scream, yet Dalton's calm face remains impassive. He speaks quietly, reminding you that cooperation may spare further torment. This is not random cruelty. Each turn of the screw is calculated. Pain rises incrementally, testing your endurance, examining the limits of your resolve. The chamber amplifies every sensation: the cold, the damp, the shadows, the echo of your own breath. Every element conspires to break you. If the thumb screws fail to produce cooperation, the rack awaits. The central instrument of the chamber, designed to stretch the body to its limits. The ropes hang taut, rollers ready. Dalton demonstrates the procedure with clinical precision. First comes stretching, then dislocation, each stage escalating pain without immediate death. Few endure past the first dislocation. The rack represents the culmination of the chamber's philosophy. Break the body, and the mind will follow. Anticipation alone terrifies more than the devices themselves. Sir John's words echo: confess, and mercy may follow. Resist, and the consequences are yours. The chamber presents the illusion of choice, but every path leads to pressure, pain, and the test of will. The mind wrestles with fear and reason, hope and despair. Every sound, every flicker of torchlight, every shadow serves as a reminder that you are entirely at the mercy of those who see suffering as necessary. The tower teaches a grim lesson. Freedom is conditional, and resistance is costly. As Dalton begins his work, the chamber fills with an echoing rhythm. The tightening of screws, the creak of wood, the faint groans of strained limbs. This is the beginning of your ordeal in one of history's most feared institutions. Outside, London continues its daily life, oblivious to the darkness beneath the White Tower. Within, justice and cruelty merge into a single terrifying reality. Every sound, every sensation, every shadow is a reminder of centuries of human suffering and the cold efficiency of those entrusted with state power. You are now part of that history. Dalton places the thumb screw carefully on a small brazier. Cold metal is uncomfortable, he explains, but heated metal is unbearable. You watch as it glows dull red in the flames, every moment amplifying fear. Sir John stands silently, observing, expression unreadable. He has seen countless prisoners endure this process, and for him it is unpleasant but necessary statecraft. The anticipation of pain is as potent a weapon as the instrument itself. Each second stretches endlessly, turning your mind into a theater of dread, where imagination multiplies torment before the first touch. The chamber itself enhances the torment. Windowless and underground, it exists outside time. There is no day or night, only the eternal flicker of torches. Thick stone walls swallow every scream, isolating you from the outside world. Dalton's matter-of-fact explanations, combined with the instruments around you, create a theater of fear. Your imagination becomes his accomplice. Each device, each tool, each shadowed corner amplifies dread. You are utterly removed from normal life, in a place where the rules of society do not apply, and only the will of the torturer governs. Dalton gestures toward another device. The strapado, a simple rope and pulley system attached to the ceiling, yet devastating in its effects. Victims' hands are tied behind their backs and hoisted upward, dislocating shoulders. Sometimes weights are added to the feet, increasing agony. The beauty of this method lies in its simplicity. You need not even touch the prisoner. Their own body performs the work. Dalton explains this with professional pride. By describing its function, he plants vivid, terrifying images in your mind. Anticipation becomes another instrument in his arsenal. In a shadowed corner stands a third instrument, the scavenger's daughter. Unlike the rack, which stretches the body, this device compresses it. Victims are forced into a crouching position while metal bands are tightened until movement is impossible. Pressure builds, breathing becomes difficult, and blood vessels rupture, producing painful marks from nose, ears, and fingernails. Sir John notes, with a chilling pride, that it is an English invention by Sir Leonard Skinkton during Henry VIII's reign. Every instrument is designed to inflict maximum pain without causing death, because a dead prisoner cannot provide secrets. These instruments demonstrate the dark genius of medieval torture, each one calibrated to inflict maximum suffering without ending life prematurely. The torturer walks a fine line, applying precisely the right amount of agony to break resistance. Dalton works with the precision of a craftsman. For him, cruelty is not pleasure, it is method. The chamber, its devices, and the men who operate them are part of a system where the body is a path to truth, and pain is the key. Each sound, movement, and shadow contributes to the carefully orchestrated symphony of fear. By now, the thumb screw is heated to a dull red glow. Dalton removes it carefully with tongs, approaching with professional focus. The guards hold your arms firmly. One last chance, Sir John says. Confess now, and this can end. The heat radiates toward you, and for a moment, truth and falsehood lose all meaning. The only reality is imminent pain and the desperate desire to avoid it. This is the dark genius of the chamber. The mind is prey to fear even before the body is touched. Anticipation becomes a weapon, and the prisoner is powerless to resist its effects. The hot metal meets your thumb. Pain explodes, sharper than words can describe. Yet Dalton's calm, detached demeanor contrasts starkly with the agony. This is methodical cruelty. Each turn of the screw intensifies the suffering, bone and nerve protesting violently. The chamber amplifies every sensation, the cold, the damp, the echoes of your own breathing. Time stretches and distorts. The mind searches for escape or explanation, but there is none. Pain becomes absolute, inescapable, and terrifyingly precise. Sir John observes from the corner, expression unreadable. For him, the process is a necessary part of governance. He sees the effect of each device, each question, each word spoken. Observation itself is a tool. The prisoner's reactions guide the next steps, indicating limits, resistance, and compliance. The chamber operates as a laboratory of fear and endurance. Every twitch, every gasp, every moment of hesitation informs the torturer, who adjusts accordingly. Pain is not random. It is data applied with surgical precision. The chamber teaches that anticipation is as powerful as the devices themselves. Every explanation of future torment, every display of an instrument, every flicker of a torch serves to magnify dread. The mind begins to generate its own pain, imagining outcomes worse than reality. Dalton knows this instinctively. The history of centuries has perfected these methods. You are trapped in a cycle where thought alone can inflict agony. Fear becomes a constant companion, inseparable from the body it inhabits. As Dalton tightens the thumb screw and the first scream escapes, you realize the true horror of the tower. It is not just physical torment but a methodical breaking of the human spirit. Mind and body are inseparable in suffering. Each amplifies the other. The chamber, its instruments, and its operators are part of a precise, centuries-old system of control. Outside, London thrives, oblivious to the meticulous orchestration of agony within these walls. Inside, you exist in a liminal space where fear, anticipation, and pain merge into one relentless, oppressive reality. In the tower, truth becomes irrelevant. Under sufficient pain, the innocent confess to imaginary crimes, while the guilty implicate the innocent. The system manufactures its own reality, forged through suffering. Dalton sighs, and the session begins. The heated thumb screw closes around your thumb. Initially, it is pressure, uncomfortable but bearable. Then Dalton turns the screw a quarter rotation. Pain sharpens, stealing your breath. Another turn, and your nerves scream, muscles coil, sweat pours. Each turn transforms the chamber into a crucible, where reality is defined by agony, and your mind becomes its own adversary. Dalton turns the screw again. Bone cracks audibly. Your breath comes in gasps. Another quarter turn, and the pain becomes urgent, consuming every thought. Sir John's voice cuts through. The names. Who conspired with you? Desperation floods your mind. You search for anything to say, anything to end the torment. Dalton releases the pressure slightly. A brief, calculated relief. It demonstrates his absolute control. Compliance brings temporary respite. Resistance brings escalation. Every motion, every sensation, is a lesson in the power wielded by these men. Torture in the tower is never continuous. Sessions are separated by periods of recovery. This is not mercy, it is strategy. A prisoner allowed partial healing can endure more sessions, providing more opportunities for questioning. The anticipation of returning to the chamber becomes its own torment. Pain is only part of the method. The mind is trained, broken, and reshaped by fear. You feel the psychological weight pressing as heavily as the physical, and the memory of relief lingers as a cruel reminder of Dalton's complete control over your suffering. Return our guests to their cell, Sir John commands. The guards half drag your trembling body back. The thumb screw leaves your hand throbbing, a reminder of what could come if resistance continues. Your cell is small, cold, and damp, with a straw pallet and a bucket for waste. A tiny barred window provides a narrow slice of sky and distant city sounds, a cruel reminder of life beyond these walls. This is the rhythm of the tower. Pain, isolation, reflection, anticipation. Your body and mind are in a constant state of tension, waiting for the next session. Food arrives. A bowl of thin gruel and a chunk of coarse bread. Medieval prisons provide only the minimum necessary to sustain life for interrogation. Comfort is a luxury denied. Your hand pulses with residual pain. Your mind is a theater of terror, filled with images of instruments and impending sessions. Every mealtime is a reminder of vulnerability, every bite a fleeting distraction. The tower's design ensures that survival is inseparable from fear. Even nourishment becomes a psychological weapon, reinforcing your dependence on those who hold absolute power over your body. Night falls, yet sleep eludes you. Pain pulses through your hand, but the mind refuses to rest. You imagine the rack, the strapado, the scavenger's daughter. Each instrument dances across your thoughts. Each shadow in the cell becomes a prelude to terror. This psychological torment is as carefully crafted as any physical device. The mind becomes a prisoner before the body is bound again. In the tower, darkness is not absence. It is a tool, shaping perception, prolonging dread, and preparing the soul for another day of measured suffering. Morning comes with no fanfare. Windowless cells provide no clue of the passage of time. Your only markers are the irregular arrival of meager meals. Temporal disorientation is another weapon in the torturer's arsenal. Days and nights blur. The mind loses track of duration. Guards arrive and the journey to the chamber begins again. Legs tremble on the cold, worn stone stairs. Yesterday's session was merely an introduction. Today the instruments await and your body remembers the pain. Anticipation, recovery, and fear are as much a part of the system as the instruments themselves. Returning to the chamber, your senses are primed. The rack, the strapado, and thumb screws stand ready. Dalton waits with professional calm. Sir John observes silently, expression neutral. Every element of the chamber, the sounds, smells, and shadows, prepares you psychologically. You have endured once, but now your body remembers, and your mind imagines what is yet to come. Anticipation heightens pain, and even before instruments touch flesh, terror tightens around your chest. The system works as intended, and you are caught within its relentless rhythm. Dalton selects the thumb screw again, placing it carefully on the brazier. Red heat glows, radiating anticipation as much as pain. "One more chance," Sir John says. "Speak now, and this can end." The moment hangs heavy. You remember yesterday's agony, the brief release, and the knowledge that resistance will only escalate suffering. Pain, strategy, and fear intertwine. The tower's design ensures that each session is more than torture. It is a calculated lesson in power, obedience, and the fragility of human endurance. The screw closes around your thumb again. Pain blooms immediately. Every nerve protests. Dalton turns the screw deliberately, step by excruciating step. Sir John's voice punctuates the rhythm. "Names. Who conspired with you?" Each turn reinforces the message. Cooperation brings relief. Resistance brings escalation. Outside, London continues unaware. Inside, the tower operates as a microcosm of control, teaching that the mind can be broken long before the body, and that endurance is measured not only by flesh but by the will to survive. The cycle continues, unbroken, unyielding. Today promises to be worse. The chamber appears unchanged, yet something new awaits. A brazier with iron rods heating in coals. These will be used to burn flesh, another lesser torture. Dalton greets you as if resuming an ordinary conversation. "I trust you've had time to reflect." Sir John observes silently, expression impassive. For him, the chamber is part of routine governance. Torture here is not cruelty for its own sake, but a component of state security, like soldiers patrolling the city gates. Every instrument, every procedure serves the crown. Before any device is employed, Sir John delivers another tactic. "We questioned your servants," he says. "They've told us interesting tales of mysterious visitors, of letters burned after reading. Whether this is true is irrelevant. The mere suggestion plants doubt, fear, and uncertainty. Your mind races, questioning loyalty and memory. In the tower, accusation itself becomes a weapon. Fear does as much as iron and rope. Denial feels futile, yet the truth remains yours to withhold or fabricate. Today, psychological torment is as potent as physical pain. Today's session begins with the strapado. Your wrists are bound behind your back, connected to the ceiling rope. Guards slowly hoist you upward until your toes barely touch the ground. Immediate pressure strikes your shoulders. Breathing becomes difficult. Every muscle in your upper body protests. Dalton nods, and they lift you completely off the floor. Pain radiates across your shoulders, chest, and back. Unlike the focused agony of the thumb screw, this is diffuse but overwhelming. Every breath, every movement is agony. Your mind races for escape or response, yet only torment is immediate and inescapable. Dalton signals, and the guards suddenly release the rope. You drop several inches before being lifted again. The shock reverberates through your already stressed joints. Pain blinding, all-consuming, escapes in guttural cries. Sir John's voice cuts through. "Give us the names, and this ends." The raising, dropping, and questioning continues in cycles. Each shock drives the body and mind closer to collapse. Many prisoners confess at this stage, unable to endure further. Yet, some history illustrates those who endure, choosing agony over betrayal. Cuthbert Simpson endured the rack 3 times without surrendering names. Anascu, arrested during Henry VIII's reign, was so severely racked she had to be carried to execution on a chair, unable to walk. Both chose agony over betrayal. These stories haunt the corridors of history, demonstrating extraordinary courage. Could you endure similarly? Would loyalty or principle provide strength against the calculated terror of the tower? These are not merely rhetorical questions. They are lived experiences, shaping the narrative of torture across centuries. After the strapado, you are lowered to the floor. Your shoulders are dislocated, limbs practically useless. Pain is blinding. Coherent thought becomes impossible. Yet the questioning continues. Sir John leans closer. This can end. Just tell us what we need to know. The temptation to invent a confession is overwhelming. The mind seeks relief, a way to end agony. This is the tower's dark genius. Even the innocent may feel compelled to fabricate lies to escape unbearable suffering. Every method, every instrument, works to dissolve resistance. Dalton's methodical explanations, Sir John's calm insistence, and the physical reality of the instruments form a single strategy: to make your mind complicit in your suffering. Every threat is calculated, every relief moment strategic. The prisoner begins to understand that survival depends not on truth or falsehood, but on reading the intentions and limitations of those in control. In the tower, reasoning and morality are secondary to endurance, perception, and submission to a system that has perfected human suffering over centuries. Even after being lowered, pain lingers and anticipation builds. Every sound, the scrape of rope, the creak of timber, the flicker of flames, alerts the mind to impending agony. Anticipation alone becomes a weapon, shaping thought and breaking will. Recovery periods are never restful, only temporary relief that allows the cycle to resume. Time loses meaning. Hours stretch endlessly. The tower ensures that each session of torture is not an isolated event but part of a continuous psychological siege that erodes mind and body alike. Sir John repeats the offer. Speak, and this ends. Each cycle forces a choice: cooperate, fabricate, or endure. The body is racked, the mind manipulated, and the prisoner caught between survival and principle. In the tower, the illusion of choice is part of the system. Compliance is rewarded with temporary relief, resistance with escalation. The psychological calculus is relentless. Pain and fear merge, creating a reality where endurance is tested, truth is uncertain, and human will is weighed against centuries of perfected methods. The tower never truly rests. Today's session ends, but tomorrow looms. Guards remove you, shoulders throbbing, limbs trembling. The cell awaits, stone cold and confining. Meals arrive, meager sustenance barely enough to sustain life. Temporal disorientation continues, heightening dread for the next session. Every step, every sensation, every shadow reinforces the power of the chamber. The cycle of agony, questioning, and temporary relief is designed to reshape prisoners into compliant vessels of information. Your mind is both weapon and target in this centuries-old orchestration of control. Many prisoners crafted elaborate falsehoods to escape immediate pain. Yet this respite was temporary. Contradictions in their stories led to renewed questioning, more torture. The medieval justice system created a nightmarish logic trap. Whether innocent or guilty, once in the torture chamber, escape became nearly impossible. Confession brought execution for imaginary crimes. Resistance brought more suffering. Every decision was a choice between agony and moral compromise. A cruel cycle designed to bend human will to the crown's purpose. Dalton prepares for the next phase. The rack, the most feared device in the tower, known colloquially as the Duke of Exat's daughter. Introduced to England in 1420 for interrogating political prisoners, its purpose is simple and terrible: to stretch the human body beyond its limits. Men have confessed merely upon seeing it. Others have endured for hours before yielding. Today the choice is yours. The guards drag your limp form to the wooden frame. Even positioning, wrists and ankles secured to the rollers, causes excruciating pain as your damaged joints protest violently. Sir John repeats the demand. The names of your fellow conspirators. Every instinct screams to confess, to end the nightmare. But which names could you give? Friends, family, innocent acquaintances. A fabricated confession would doom others to this same chamber. Your silence is met with Sir John's nod. Dalton turns the lever one notch. The ratchet clicks, ropes tighten. Your already injured body stretches further, sending fresh waves of agony through dislocated shoulders. Each turn of the lever pushes you beyond limits nature never intended, testing endurance at the extreme edge of human capability. Another turn of the lever. Your joints stretch further, muscles tear, ligaments strain. Each click echoes across the chamber, a small noise heralding immense suffering. The human body has natural limits. The rack exists to exceed them. Here, pain is both immediate and anticipatory, a dual assault. Even the strongest resolve is tested. The mind fights against the body, yet every sensation reinforces the futility of resistance. Fantasy and reality blur. Under such torment, prisoners confess to impossible crimes, consorting with devils, flying, changing forms. Truth becomes irrelevant. Listen carefully, Sir John intones, penetrating the haze of agony. Bishop Bonner arrives tomorrow. His methods are feared even today. The mere mention sends a chill through your mind. Bishop Edmund Bonner, known as the Devil's Dancing Bear, will, under Queen Mary the Firm, torture hundreds of Protestants with sadistic creativity. Unlike Dalton, Bonner derives personal pleasure from breaking victims. The contrast is terrifying. Professional efficiency versus cruel sadism. Tonight, your choice is framed not only by your body's limits, but by the looming shadow of a far harsher torment. One night remains to decide. Confession tomorrow or endure Bonner's attentions. The message is clear. The psychological weight of a notorious figure, a history of sadistic cruelty, magnifies present suffering. Your mind races through possibilities. The chamber has taught that anticipation can be as painful as the instruments themselves. Each memory of agony, each flash of fear compounds. Outside, life continues normally in London, oblivious. Inside, your mind and body are prisoners of a meticulously orchestrated system, designed to extract truth, or fabricate it through pain. The session ends. Guards release you from the rack. Your body is a landscape of injury. Shoulders dislocated, muscles torn, ligaments strained. Each movement is agony. Even collapsing onto the straw pallet offers no true relief. Every shift sends spikes of pain through already damaged limbs. Night arrives, yet sleep is impossible. The body protests, and the mind is captive to visions of instruments, future sessions, and the infamous Bonner. Pain and anticipation intertwine, each feeding the other in a relentless cycle. In your cell, every minor movement is agony. The memory of the rack lingers in every nerve. Dislocated shoulders throb with each breath. Muscles scream with any shift. Pain dominates, but so does dread. The mind plays scenes of Bonner's reputed cruelty over and over, turning fear into a living instrument. The tower's design ensures that psychological torment is inseparable from physical agony. Sleep, rest, and even hope become unattainable luxuries. The prisoner is trapped in a perpetual state of alertness and fear. Tomorrow, the choice will come again. Confess, fabricate names, or endure further agony. The human mind craves escape, yet every option carries moral and physical consequences. History has seen men and women endure unimaginable suffering rather than betray principles or others. Yet even extraordinary courage is tested against centuries of perfected methods of breaking will. You understand now that the tower operates as much on anticipation, dread, and decision-making as on instruments of pain. Each moment is a lesson in submission and endurance. Night stretches endlessly. Pain and fear prevent rest. Dislocated shoulders ache with every slight movement. Muscles of the entire body protest, remembering the stretching and tearing of the rack. The looming presence of Bishop Bonner in your imagination makes sleep impossible. In the tower, the body is only half the struggle. The mind is equally captive. Thoughts spiral between pain, memory, fear, and moral dilemma. The night becomes another instrument, shaping endurance and preparing you for the horrors to come with cruel precision. Medieval torture was never merely physical. Isolation, uncertainty, and deliberate manipulation of hope and fear were weapons aimed at the mind. Many prisoners broke psychologically long before their bodies gave out. In the darkness of your cell, a strange figure appears, a monk in a simple brown robe. He offers water, then gently helps you sit despite your injuries. "I am Brother Thomas," he whispers. He serves as physician to the tower's prisoners, a role as much about control as care, for a dead prisoner reveals nothing. Brother Thomas examines your dislocated shoulders with practiced hands. Sudden movements snap them back into sockets, drawing gasps of pain. He applies salves and binds your joints. "These will heal if given time," he says. But time is a luxury you do not have. Tomorrow brings either confession or Bishop Bonner. Survival is not mercy. It is a tool of the system. Medical care ensures you endure long enough to be broken, revealing what the crown desires. Even kindness here serves the machinery of control. Brother Thomas speaks softly of his role. He has treated hundreds, easing suffering just enough to keep prisoners alive for further questioning. "I've seen stronger than you break," he tells you. No judgment, no threat. Only the clinical truth. In the tower, morality is measured in survival, not virtue. Compassion is suspect. Every interaction becomes a potential instrument of coercion. Even the healer is part of the machinery, a reminder that every advantage belongs to those who control the chamber. Before leaving, Brother Thomas delivers one final warning. Bishop Bonner brings devices even Master Dalton considers excessive. His favorite, the burning chair, involves an iron seat heated from below while questioning continues. These words hang in the air, a prelude of terror. Are they a warning or an act of mercy? It is impossible to tell. Brother Thomas departs, leaving you alone with your pain, your fear, and the terrible choice awaiting in the morning. The mind becomes another instrument of torture, turning anticipation into agony. Dawn arrives too quickly. The cell door opens. Guards appear, not to escort you to the dungeon chamber, but to a small room with water for washing and fresh clothing. Sir John has insisted you present properly to the bishop. An unexpected courtesy, yet more frightening than immediate torture. It suggests ceremony, preparation, and deliberation. Cleaned and dressed, you are led to a larger ground floor room in the White Tower. Windows admit daylight for the first time since your capture. The room appears almost like a council chamber, an illusion of civility designed to unsettle. The room contains a large table and chairs, appearing as a council chamber rather than a torture space. Yet the illusion is shattered by what stands in the corner. An iron chair with straps for arms and legs, positioned above a compartment clearly designed to hold hot coals. Even in a room bathed in daylight, terror is present. The chamber manipulates not only the senses but expectation. Civilization masks cruelty, making the mind's unease as potent as physical suffering. This is the art of medieval state terror. Every step, every preparation adds to the psychological weight. You are aware that tomorrow will demand a decision. Confess or face Bishop Bonner. The mind calculates consequences, anticipates pain, and measures endurance. Each detail of the room, the table, the chair, the light, serves to heighten dread. Even seemingly benign surroundings become instruments in a deliberate orchestration of fear. In the tower, the human mind is as carefully manipulated as the body, trained to feel helpless and compelled toward confession. Guards leave you briefly alone, yet the silence is suffocating. Every creak of timber, every flicker of light, becomes amplified in the anticipation of torture. The mind fills with images of iron, fire, and pain. You feel trapped in a liminal space. Daylight outside contrasts with the inner darkness of fear and expectation. This calm is a form of torment, teaching the mind to imagine extremes before the body suffers again. The tower turns anticipation itself into an instrument, ensuring terror lingers even before instruments touch flesh. Your gaze returns to the iron chair. Its straps suggest restraint, the compartment beneath unimaginable heat. The very design communicates suffering before it begins. Every object in the chamber is a psychological device. Daylight and furniture might offer comfort, yet the chair ensures your mind remains trapped in fear. Thoughts of the burning chair, combined with the memory of the rack and strapado, create an almost unbearable tension. Here, the tower teaches that anticipation, dread, and context can shape suffering as powerfully as instruments of pain. The hour approaches. Cleaned and dressed, you are ready for what history calls an encounter with the devil's dancing bear. Every moment in the tower has prepared you. The chamber, the instruments, the physicians, the guards, and the psychological traps. Now, you understand that survival is not a simple matter of endurance but of calculation, anticipation, and moral courage. Tomorrow, the choice will be demanded, and the weight of centuries of perfected terror presses down upon you. Every breath, every heartbeat, carries the knowledge that what comes next will test body, mind, and spirit. 3 men await. Sir John, familiar and impassive. Beside him, a heavy-set man in bishop's robes. Edmund Bonner himself, his fleshy face set in amused contempt. The third, a royal clerk, quill and parchment at the ready. "Our guest arrives," Bonner says softly. His voice contrasts with his reputation, but his eyes calculate and assess you like raw material, determining how best to extract submission. Unlike Dalton's detached professionalism, Bonner's interest is personal. Every glance, every gesture conveys anticipation and intent. Bonner gestures toward the iron chair. "Confess your treason," he says. "Name your accomplices, and your punishment will be merciful. A quick execution rather than what I have planned." This offer is not benevolence but strategy. The torture chamber relies on anticipation as much as execution. By presenting alternatives, displaying instruments, and explaining procedures, the victim's mind is manipulated. Confession becomes not just an option, but a seemingly rational choice against the certainty of escalating agony. Instruments and words reconstruct reality. Pain is imminent, choices are constrained, and the mind perceives confession as the path of survival. Innocence becomes a luxury too costly to maintain. Truth exists only in the context of relief. Principles dissolve under pressure. Loyalty becomes negotiable. Every prisoner faces the same inescapable calculation: suffer physically or betray internally. The tower's horror lies not in devices, but in this inexorable logic, a system that shapes both body and mind with equal precision. You face the ultimate decision: false confession to escape pain or endure unimaginable suffering to preserve truth. History records both outcomes. Some chose truth and endured agony beyond comprehension. Others chose relief, carrying the moral burden of betrayal. No simple heroes or villains exist here. Only human beings trapped in a system that strips identity and dignity, leaving only pain and the desperate need to survive. Every moment is calculated to fracture both body and mind, testing endurance at its extremes. Bishop Bonner circles like a predator, observing, evaluating, anticipating. Unlike Dalton, who performs with clinical detachment, Bonner radiates disturbing enthusiasm. His fleshy fingers tap against his robes impatiently. Every subtle movement is a test of your reaction. He gauges fear, hesitation, and mental fortitude, calculating how to break resistance most efficiently. In this chamber, psychological assessment is as vital as any instrument. Bonner embodies terror made personal, a man who finds purpose in the suffering of those under his gaze. "I grow weary of waiting," Bonner finally says. "Perhaps a small demonstration will clarify your position." He nods to a guard, who retrieves a metal implement from the brazier, a branding iron shaped like a heretic's fork. Two-pronged, designed to force the victim upright, preventing the head from lowering. Exhaustion becomes inevitable. Bonner explains matter-of-factly. This is merely a taste of what awaits if resistance continues. Even the threat of minimal pain exerts immense psychological pressure, shaping compliance without immediate injury. The chamber's power lies not only in instruments but in anticipation. The branding iron forces posture and vigilance, creating exhaustion and dread. Even without contact, the mind imagines every possible sensation. Medieval torturers understood that anticipation could rival physical suffering in effectiveness. By displaying devices and explaining procedures, victims perceive inevitability. Confession becomes framed as rational survival. Every suggestion, every glance, every description reshapes perception, reconstructing reality to favor compliance. Your eyes return to the iron chair. Metal straps for arms and legs, a compartment beneath for hot coals. Already, the heat radiates faintly across the floor. The chair is an instrument of both pain and psychological domination. Its design communicates inevitable suffering. Even daylight cannot soften its menace. You recognize the calculated precision of the medieval torturer. Instruments, anticipation, threats, all fused into a system that dismantles body, mind, and moral reasoning in equal measure. The moment intensifies. Confess or resist. The room, the chair, the coals, Bonner himself, all converge into a singular focus on your decision. Historical prisoners faced the same choice countless times: submit to save the body and betray truth, or endure and risk destruction. In this chamber, survival is never certain, and moral compromise is often the only perceived route. Each heartbeat reminds you of the stakes. Each glance at Bonner reinforces the consequences. Your body trembles, your mind races. The system has left no corner unmanipulated. Bonner gestures for the guard to position the branding iron beneath your chin. The metal is hot, radiating heat even before contact. Its purpose is clear: a taste of what awaits. A small, calculated discomfort to enforce submission. Even without injury, your muscles tense, your breath quickens, and the mind begins to weigh confession against endurance. This is the essence of medieval torture, combining psychological terror with measured physical threat to maximize control. Every method, every glance, every word is a deliberate tool of statecraft and human manipulation. Bishop Bonner begins to lecture on the Spanish methods, his voice calm, almost scholarly. In Spain, he says, they have perfected techniques that make our English methods seem merciful. The Spanish Inquisition, established in 1478, operates with terrifying efficiency. Bonner's interest is both cruel and intellectual. He describes the systematic administration of torture, scribes recording every detail, careful protocols, and meticulous planning. Unlike the Tower's chamber, which blends psychological and physical terror, the Spanish approach treats suffering as a bureaucratic science. The Spanish begin with the question, Bonner explains. The accused is first shown the chamber and its instruments. Many confess simply at the sight. Those who resist are stripped naked, their vulnerability adding torment. Even before physical pain begins, the mind is manipulated. The anticipation of suffering, exposure, and humiliation becomes a weapon in itself. Your own gaze flicks between the glowing iron chair and Bonner's measured expressions, understanding that psychological terror is as potent as fire or steel. Bonner continues, describing the Spanish refinement of the strapado: weights attached to the feet, sudden drops designed to shatter shoulders more efficiently. His matter-of-fact delivery contrasts sharply with the suffering he describes. Pain is discussed as craft, as a precise mechanism to extract truth. Even as the chair glows faintly in the corner, you realize how calculated every moment of suffering is. Instruments, anticipation, and procedural precision converge to leave the prisoner no recourse but compliance. The water torture, Bonner adds with chilling admiration, is particularly effective. Bound to an inclined rack, head lowered, a cloth over mouth and nose, water poured slowly. The sensation is drowning, though no permanent harm occurs. Victims break quickly. The method, what we now call waterboarding, will persist across centuries. Bonner's fascination with technique reveals the medieval mindset: suffering as an art, refined through observation and repeated practice. Each explanation intensifies the psychological pressure, a demonstration of calculated terror. Enough discussion, Sir John interrupts, voice clipped. Will you confess your treason now, or must we proceed? The calm academic analysis of torture gives way to immediate consequence. You glance between Bonner and the glowing chair, understanding the choice is no longer theoretical. The decision is not simply guilt or innocence. It is a moral test. Will you preserve truth at the cost of unbearable suffering? Or will survival compel betrayal of principle, implicating others to save yourself? Outside the thick walls of the tower, life continues unabated. Markets bustle, apprentices learn trades, children play in narrow streets. The ordinary world remains unaware of the horrors unfolding in the chamber. This separation is crucial. The machinery of torture operates in secrecy, its effectiveness amplified by the public's ignorance. Inside, every sound, every shadow, and every instrument is amplified, a private terror hidden from the normal rhythm of life outside. I am innocent, you insist again, voice cracking despite your fear. I have committed no treason. Bonner's eyes narrow slightly, a flicker of disappointment crossing his features. Even protestation becomes part of the game. Refusal to confess intensifies anticipation and signals your willingness to endure suffering. In this room, words themselves become instruments, shaping what comes next. Silence, defiance, and speech all play roles in the unfolding psychological drama. Very well, Bonner says, voice low and measured. The chair awaits. The glowing iron chair radiates heat, a silent but undeniable promise of pain. Each step toward it carries not just the threat of physical agony, but the weight of moral choice. You understand that centuries of prisoners face this same intersection: truth versus survival, principle versus relief. The chamber is designed not only to punish, but to force reflection on one's character under unimaginable pressure. The iron chair is more than a device. It is a symbol of state power, of centuries of perfected terror. Its glow illuminates the careful orchestration of the tower's instruments, coals, straps, and the patient anticipation of suffering. You feel the presence of history pressing down, every story of past prisoners echoing through stone walls. Courage, defiance, confession, and betrayal all converge here. Each choice leaves a moral and physical imprint, shaping both the body and the soul. The chamber is a crucible where human limits are tested, often beyond endurance. The moment of reckoning is at hand. Bonner steps closer, hands resting lightly on robes, eyes fixed on you. Every muscle tenses in anticipation. Confession or resistance, relief or suffering, the decision is yours. The chamber, the instruments, the men, and the long shadow of history converge in this singular instant. In the quiet before the agony, you grasp the essential truth of medieval torture. It is not merely physical. It is a system designed to fracture identity, to make every choice carry unbearable moral and bodily weight. The iron chair, glowing and waiting, embodies that truth. The guards move to seize you, but the chamber door bursts open. A messenger enters, whispering urgently to Sir John. His irritation vanishes, replaced by concern. Prepare the prisoner for transport, he orders, voice sharp. We depart for Hampton Court immediately. The king wishes to question this one personally. Bonner's frustration is palpable, though he masks it with a thin smile. Perhaps another day, he murmurs. For now, fate intervenes, sparing you from the iron chair, but offering no certainty of mercy. The question hangs: rescue or merely a relocation of suffering? You are escorted from the dungeon into the tower's courtyard. A covered wagon waits, its wooden wheels creaking, canvas flapping in the wind. The guards position themselves around you, expressionless. As you climb inside, the reality of movement and exposure contrasts sharply with the oppressive stillness of the dungeon. The world outside seems impossibly distant. Merchants shouting, children running, women carrying baskets. Normal life continues oblivious to the machinations of power and suffering that just occurred within the tower's walls. The wagon rumbles southwest along the Thames, past villages and fields. Each bump jars your already fragile body. Dislocated shoulders ache despite Brother Thomas's ministrations. Fingers remain swollen from the thumb screws. Pain and exhaustion intermingle, a constant reminder that survival in the medieval justice system came at a steep price. Guards maintain their silent vigil, impassive to your suffering. Hours stretch endlessly, the landscape outside a blur, while inside, your body insists on reminding you of every previous torment. You drift in and out of consciousness. Dreams and memories merge. Dalton's impassive face, Bonner's eager eyes, the mechanical click of the rack. Even in sleep, the tower's terrors persist. Torture leaves traces not only on flesh but on mind. Anxiety, dread, and memory of pain intertwine. Hours pass in this suspended state, where reality blurs with nightmare, illustrating that medieval punishment was as much psychological as it was physical. Survival demands more than endurance. It demands mental surrender to an ever-present fear. A sudden jolt awakens you. The wagon stops. Canvas is pulled back to reveal Hampton Court Palace, a sprawling red brick complex begun by Cardinal Wolsey. The grandeur of polished wood, ornate tapestries, and gleaming candle holders stands in stark contrast to the tower's grim dungeons. Guards escort you through corridors adorned with fine decorations. The air smells faintly of wax and polished timber, a reminder that this is a seat of wealth and power, and not a place of punishment, at least for now. The contrast is almost surreal after days of misery. You are brought to a small but proper room. A bed with linens, a chair, and a window overlooking the palace gardens greet you. Simple comforts feel almost unreal after the squalor of the tower. A servant brings water and clean clothing, gestures gentle but precise. For the first time in days, you are allowed to rest without immediate threat. The room smells faintly of polished wood and fresh air, a stark contrast to the stone, mold, and smoke of the dungeon. Safety here is temporary, but palpable. A physician arrives, examining your injuries with care. Unlike Brother Thomas, whose ministrations were practical and harsh, this man's touch is gentle, precise. Salves are applied, joints carefully bound, and a tincture for pain administered. His movements suggest reassurance. You are a guest here, not a prisoner, at least in appearance. The king wishes you well enough to speak clearly tomorrow, he explains. Every action, from binding to administering medicine, is deliberate, preserving life and functionality for the inevitable questioning. You lie on the bed, the pain in your shoulders and fingers muted slightly by tincture, yet the mind remains alert. The sudden shift from dungeon to palace is disorienting. Comfort itself becomes a source of unease. Are these gestures genuine hospitality, or a prelude to further examination? The mind, trained by days of terror, weighs every detail. Soft linens, clean water, warm light. You realize that in medieval justice, even kindness may be a tool to extract compliance or prepare for what comes next. As evening falls, you gaze out over the palace gardens. Trees sway gently, birds call softly. Outside, life continues, tranquil and unaware of the human suffering that just arrived within these walls. Tomorrow brings the ultimate confrontation with the king. You must appear coherent, articulate, and measured, despite pain and exhaustion. The juxtaposition of serenity outside and turmoil within heightens tension. Every breath is a preparation for the questions to come, every sensation a reminder of the tower's shadow still looming over you. Night arrives, soft and quiet. The room is warm, the linens comforting. Yet sleep is uneasy. Memories of the tower, Dalton, Bonner, and every instrument of pain haunt your mind. Yet here, in the relative comfort of Hampton Court, there is a fragile hope. The physician's care, the gentle servants, the orderly chamber, all offer a temporary reprieve. You drift into restless sleep, aware that dawn will bring the king and with it the weight of questions, judgment, and the unknown. The contrast between fear and security sharpens, a final lesson before the morrow's reckoning. After the dramatic shift from Tower Dungeons to Hampton Court, you finally sleep properly for the first time since your arrest. The night is quiet, unbroken by the echoes of metal or the harsh commands of guards. Though your body aches, The simple comfort of a proper bed and warm blankets allows a rare sense of relief. In medieval justice, such sudden reversals were not uncommon. Favor and disfavor shifted with court politics or the king's whim, leaving prisoners suspended between hope and despair. Tonight, at least, the world feels momentarily safe. Morning arrives, bringing with it an unusual breakfast: fresh bread, cheese, and a small mug of ale. Unlike the meager gruel of the tower, this meal speaks of status and care. The servant who delivers it offers no explanation for your changed circumstances, leaving your mind to swirl with questions. Guards arrive mid-morning, their demeanor watchful but measured. Today you will face the king, and your every movement is observed. The air is filled with anticipation, a quiet tension unlike anything you experienced underground. You are escorted through more of Hampton Court's splendid corridors. Tapestries line the walls, polished wood gleams in sunlight streaming through tall windows. The contrast with the tower's dark, damp passageways is jarring. Guards flank you as you approach a private chamber. No courtiers are present. The audience is intimate. Each step emphasizes the dramatic shift in circumstance, from accused traitor dragged through stone halls to a guest before the king himself. The audience chamber is modest but elegant. King Henry VI sits in a carved wooden chair beside a window. At 26 years old, he radiates an ethereal quality rather than the martial authority of his father. His eyes meet yours, calm yet penetrating. "You are accused of plotting against our person," he says, voice soft but clear. "Yet we find no conviction in the accusations. Tell us truthfully. Have you conspired against your king?" The direct gaze compels honesty, a stark contrast to the coercion of the tower. You repeat your innocence, recounting the machinations of political rivals. Henry listens quietly, nodding as you speak. After a pause, he remarks, "We have seen too much cruelty done in our name. The tower's methods trouble our conscience, though advisors insist on their necessity. Even rulers who authorize torture could wrestle with moral doubt." Henry's religious temperament makes the harsher aspects of governance particularly difficult. His words reveal the complexity of medieval kingship. Justice, mercy, and politics intertwined, leaving both ruler and subject navigating a moral labyrinth. "We believe you innocent," the king continues. "You shall be released, but understand this mercy comes with expectation, unwavering loyalty in these troubled times." The words wash over you, transforming despair into disbelief. Your ordeal ends as suddenly as it began, from accused traitor to royal favorite within days. The precariousness of court life is laid bare. Fortunes can shift overnight, and survival often depends as much on chance and timing as on virtue or innocence. As you leave, a courtier explains the true cause of your salvation. Your main accuser has confessed under torture to fabricating evidence against innocent parties, including you. The irony is bitter. The same system designed to destroy you ultimately preserved your life. You grasp the duality of medieval justice. Torture produces false confessions but also occasionally uncovers genuine treachery. Its logic is self-perpetuating, justified by partial truths amidst widespread injustice. Within days, your property and position are restored. You return to London society as if nothing had happened, yet everything has changed. The body bears marks of the tower's attention: dislocated joints, swollen fingers, lingering aches. Every interaction with the world reminds you of the fragility of status and life in medieval England. You are free, but memory and pain linger, a testament to the cruelty you endured and survived. The experience leaves deep reflection. Torture, political manipulation, and royal favor shaped lives unpredictably. Innocent lives were destroyed, conspiracies uncovered, and moral compromises demanded. You ponder the arbitrary nature of medieval justice, where fear and loyalty intersected, and the mechanisms of power operated in shadows. Your survival is both relief and burden, proof of fortune's hand, not the fairness of law. Though released, your body and mind bear permanent reminders. The tower's devices, the relentless psychological torment, the near miss with Bonner, all leave traces. You carry scars, aches, and memories that will outlast the injustice. Yet the city moves on, life continues, and your place within it is restored. In this moment, you understand the duality of medieval life: vulnerability and resilience, cruelty and mercy, despair and the occasional grace that allows survival against unimaginable odds. More significantly, your mind carries memories that separate you from those who have never experienced the chamber's horrors. This psychological distance persists across centuries. From medieval dungeons to modern sites of detention, systematic pain creates a kind of knowledge impossible to share in words alone. Every clank of metal or creak of stress would trigger vivid flashbacks. Your body might heal, yet the mind retains every detail. Walking past the tower, you tremble. A uniform like those worn by the Iman warders sends your heart racing. Trauma leaves marks deeper than flesh ever could. Medieval society recognized only physical or spiritual injury. Psychological trauma had no name. Survivors of torture, what we now call post-traumatic stress, were labeled melancholic, possessed, or morally weak. Nights were haunted by nightmares, days by sudden, uncontrollable flashbacks. You realize your perception of authority, justice, and human nature has shifted permanently. The experience of the tower has altered you, as it altered countless others, creating survivors who navigate society forever changed by what they endured underground. Across Europe, the methods differed but the logic remained the same. Pain extracts truth. In Germany, the strapado dislocated shoulders. In France, the Brodkins crushed limbs. In Spain, water torture became an art. England favored stretching devices like the rack. Despite these variations, the underlying assumption persisted: the body can be coerced to reveal secrets. The reality, however, was far crueler. Torture produced whatever confession the interrogator sought, true or false. Innocence mattered little. Survival demanded submission. Bishop Bonner, narrowly avoided in the tower, continued his career under Queen Mary Tudor, earning the chilling nickname, the Devil's Dancing Bear. He personally tortured dozens of Protestants, combining physical agony with psychological manipulation. Bonner's method began with unexpected kindness: food, comfort, reasoned theological discussion. Only when this failed did he unleash severe torture. This good cop, bad cop routine, centuries before the term existed, disoriented victims, breaking resistance long before the physical pain began. Torture in medieval Europe was more than pain. It was a carefully designed system of social isolation, sensory manipulation, and fear. Practitioners understood that anticipation can exceed agony, that the mind can be broken before the body. Chambers were constructed to heighten despair. Procedures were formalized to maintain control. Every element, from architecture to questioning, served to erode the prisoner's will. In the tower, fear was as precise a tool as the rack or the iron chair. The anticipation of pain, the knowledge of what might come, was itself a weapon. Every glance at a device, every word of interrogation, every subtle motion of a guard could amplify suffering. Prisoners learned quickly that the mind could be coerced as readily as the body. This insight into human psychology, pain as both physical and mental coercion, separates medieval European torture from simpler punitive violence. The chamber was not merely a site of punishment, it was an instrument of systematic, calculated terror. As you rebuild your life, society offers little sympathy. Those untouched by the tower cannot comprehend your ordeal. Those who condone torture see no reason to question it. Potential allies fear association with someone accused of treason, even if later exonerated. This social isolation compounds psychological damage. Survivors of medieval torture were left to endure silent suffering, their invisible wounds as lasting as scars on flesh. They carried knowledge and trauma few could share, living with a legacy of fear and pain. The memory of torture persisted culturally as well. Stories of the tower, of Bonner, of the rack, and the iron chair circulated in whispered tales. Families warned children. Civic imagination absorbed the terror. Survivors, though hidden, contributed to this living memory. Fear of torture shaped behavior, politics, and social norms. Beyond personal trauma, the existence of the chamber influenced an entire society's understanding of power, justice, and obedience, leaving psychological marks far beyond the walls of the tower. Through centuries, the lessons of the tower and similar institutions persisted. Torture was refined, legislated, debated, and occasionally condemned, but never disappeared. Each generation of prisoners bore witness to human cruelty and resilience. Your own survival becomes part of this continuum, a story of endurance, witness, and the persistent struggle between coercion and conscience. The marks on body and mind serve as reminders that history is lived, not merely recorded. Ultimately, the tower teaches an unflinching truth. Human beings are capable of extraordinary cruelty, yet also resilience. The body can endure, the mind can survive, but neither escapes unscathed. As you walk through life after the tower, you carry both warning and wisdom. Torture has left its imprint on your perception of authority, justice, and human nature. And while the city moves on, the lessons of fear, endurance, and moral complexity remain with you, a private history engraved as deeply as any scar. Months after your release, you sit in a crowded London tavern and notice a former tower guard. He does not recognize you. To him, prisoners were interchangeable, bodies to be managed rather than humans to be understood. You watch him drink, laugh, and speak with ease, apparently unburdened by participation in systematic cruelty. This compartmentalization of duty and morality is part of how torture persisted. Few torturers considered themselves evil. Most believed they were serving the crown and protecting the realm. Their detachment allows cruelty to endure. Even years later, your escape from Bishop Bonner's iron chair haunts you. Dreams of heated metal, the smell of scorching iron, and low stone chambers induce panic. Rooms with low ceilings trigger nausea, recalling the tower's dungeons. Modern psychology would recognize these as post-traumatic symptoms, but in medieval England, they were simply the invisible cost of survival. Every heartbeat carries the memory of coercion, every shadow a reminder of how fragile freedom can be. Your story, from false accusation through torture to reprieve, reflects a repeated pattern in medieval justice. Arbitrary accusations, the interplay of physical suffering and psychological manipulation, and lasting mental and bodily scars characterize the system. Unlike modern views, medieval torture was accepted and institutionalized. It was not secretive. It operated openly under royal authority, administered by professionals, and constrained by formal protocols. Legitimacy lent it a frightening weight. Tracing the raised scars on your thumbs, you realize a chilling truth. The boundary between civilization and barbarism is far narrower than imagined. Ordinary, decent people can participate in methodical cruelty. Societies capable of law, learning, and commerce can integrate cruelty as a sanction tool. The Tower of London is proof that organized society and organized cruelty are not opposites. They can coexist seamlessly. You are forever changed by this understanding. Years pass. Life resumes a semblance of normality. Commerce, friendships, and routines return. Yet every memory of the tower lingers. The smell of damp stone, the echo of ratchets, the dread of Bonner's iron chair. You are physically healed but mentally altered. Life moves on, yet you remain quietly marked by experience. You navigate the city and society differently, more cautious, more aware of the fragility of personal safety and the potential for systemic cruelty under the guise of justice. In 1455, England descends into civil war, the Wars of the Roses. Political fortunes shift violently, and the stability you once relied on dissolves. England becomes unsafe. Merchants, scholars, and nobles flee the turmoil. Your survival instincts prompt you to leave, joining the stream of exiles traveling across Europe. Your experiences in the tower inform every choice. You know the danger of unchecked authority and the fragility of security in times of political instability. Your travels lead first to the German lands, a patchwork of cities, principalities, and ecclesiastical territories within the Holy Roman Empire. Here, far from the tower, you observe that the art of torture has taken new forms, reflecting local legal traditions and cultural practices. Law and punishment are interwoven with local customs, and the role of coercion in justice is more pervasive than in England. Each city has its own rules, but the logic remains the same. Physical suffering is used to extract truth. In Nuremberg, the justice system is both similar and different to England's. Torture is employed broadly, not reserved solely for political prisoners. Ordinary criminal cases might lead to the rack or the strapado. Instruments of pain are carefully documented. Judges and executioners operate within codified procedures, believing fully in their necessity. As you witness trials and questioning, you recognize a familiar logic. The body as a vessel of truth, the mind as a battlefield. The methods may differ, but the objective, the extraction of confession, remains universal. German cities demonstrate local variations. Some prioritize speed, others ceremonial adherence. Weights are added to limbs. Ropes and pulleys are used to maximize pain efficiently. You note how different societies shape torture to fit their laws, economy, and social norms. Despite geographic distance, the tower's lessons echo here. Human cruelty, when sanctioned by law, adapts and persists. Your understanding of medieval justice expands, revealing a transnational pattern of institutionalized coercion. From London to Nuremberg, you recognize a truth about survival. Avoiding cruelty requires not just luck but awareness of power structures, social navigation, and moral flexibility. You reflect on your narrow escape from the tower, the lessons learned, and the enduring marks on body and mind. The experience shapes every interaction, every decision, every judgment about authority. Survival is not merely escaping death. It is understanding the machinery of fear and knowing how to move within it. And in that knowledge lies both freedom and burden. In the German lands, torture is systematized under the Carolina Code, the criminal law of Emperor Charles V, formally issued in 1532. This code attempts to regulate the use of judicial cruelty, specifying when and how torture may be applied. Substantial preliminary evidence, eyewitness testimony, physical proof, or prior documented offenses is required before a judge may authorize coercion. Though often circumvented, these legal formalities reflect an effort to constrain arbitrariness while maintaining the machinery of fear. In Nuremberg's town hall, you are permitted to observe a criminal proceeding. The torture itself remains private, but the surrounding judicial ritual is revealing. Officials explain the graduated system. First comes tritio verbalis, verbal intimidation. The accused is vividly told what awaits them should they fail to confess. Many yield at this stage alone. The German system, like its English counterpart, exploits the mind's ability to anticipate suffering, recognizing that fear alone often surpasses physical pain in efficacy. If verbal threats fail, the official continues. Territio relis. The accused is shown the instruments of torture, a staged performance of impending agony. Devices are displayed, handles turned, mechanisms explained. Court records indicate many confessions occur during this demonstration phase, even before physical harm. Here, the performance of cruelty precedes the infliction of it, creating a theater of fear that preys on imagination as much as the body. Only if these preliminary measures fail does the court proceed to the question ordinaire, actual physical torture. Even then, strict protocols regulate duration, intensity, and medical oversight. This paradox, extreme suffering constrained by bureaucratic rules, defines German judicial torture. The tension between cruelty and constraint is emblematic of European approaches. Legalized agony becomes a controlled experiment in human endurance. You descend to the underground chambers beneath the town hall. Unlike the Tower of London's stone austerity, Nuremberg's torture room is clinical, almost mechanical. Specialized devices line the walls. Each instrument is calibrated for specific effects. Maximum pain without guaranteed death. The German emphasis on technical precision is applied disturbingly to human suffering. The architecture, layout, and tools reflect a cultural obsession with craftsmanship extended into cruelty. Among the infamous instruments are the pair of anguish, inserted and expanded to tear flesh, the knee splitter, crushing joints between spikes and wooden plates, and the breast ripper, designed to rip flesh with heated metal claws. Each device embodies precision engineering applied to the body. The sophistication reveals a grim philosophy. Suffering can be crafted with intentionality and predictability, a grotesque application of craftsmanship to human pain. What strikes you most is the German methodical approach. Torture is not only systematic in application, but in design. Each instrument is tailored for predictable physical and psychological effects. Pain is quantified, engineered, and staged. The system reflects broader cultural values of precision and order, applied disturbingly to coercion. Here, justice and cruelty are inseparably intertwined, both executed with meticulous intent. From England to Germany, you notice the evolution of coercion. English chambers emphasize psychological terror and ritualized procedure, while German courts integrate bureaucratic precision and technical design. Both systems share a belief that physical pain extracts truth, yet each adapts the tools to cultural norms. Legal codes attempt to constrain cruelty even as they enable it. Across borders, torture reflects the universality of fear as a mechanism of control. From Germany, your journey continues to France. Here, torture assumes yet another regional character under the inquisitorial system of royal courts. French judicial torture integrates investigation and confession into a highly formalized legal framework, distinct from both England's Tower methods and Germany's Carolina-regulated precision. Torture is embedded in the judicial process itself, part of an inquisitorial ritual designed to produce narrative and confession rather than simply punish or terrorize. In France, the accused faces a meticulous legal inquisition. Torture is procedural, not spontaneous. Instruments exist, but their use is embedded within interrogation and documentation. Confessions are sought as part of the legal narrative, intended to validate investigation rather than purely terrorize. The French model represents a third evolution of European torture, institutionalized, codified, and woven tightly into bureaucratic justice, demonstrating how fear, law, and psychology intersect across medieval Europe. By framing torture as potentially redemptive suffering, authorities transformed resistance from heroic endurance into spiritual obstinacy, a sin compounding the original offense. This moral overlay pressured prisoners to confess not merely out of fear of pain, but from fear of divine judgment or social condemnation. Pain became a pathway to obedience, obedience to confession, and confession to survival, or at least survival of the soul. Your travels reveal a more fundamental dimension of medieval torture. Its power extends beyond individual cases. Public awareness of the torture chamber, through rumors, descriptions, or the scars of survivors, creates a climate of compliance and self-regulation. Even those never brought before a judge internalize the threat. Society disciplines itself by the invisible architecture of fear. French historians note that the chamber's influence transcends its walls. Individuals monitor their words and actions, aware of what awaits those who attract official attention. The system works without needing to torture every citizen. The deterrent effect of fear alone ensures obedience, demonstrating the chamber's role as a tool of social control rather than merely judicial procedure. Continuing your European journey, you eventually arrive in Venice. The Venetian Republic, renowned for complex governance, applies torture with remarkable administrative sophistication. The chamber is integrated into government architecture, demonstrating how spatial design becomes a psychological weapon as effective as physical instruments. Below the Doge's palace lie the Pozzi wells. Prisoners are confined in submerged dark cells, where dampness and cold disorient the mind. Before any physical instrument is applied, the environment itself weakens the prisoner's resistance, demonstrating how architecture can preemptively break the will. Most prisoners speak long before the rack or iron touches them. By contrast, the Pomi leads, attic cells exposed to summer heat, create suffering through suffocating heat and stifling air. Prisoners become exhausted, dehydrated, and mentally destabilized. Venetian authorities exploit environmental extremes as preparatory torture, achieving compliance while minimizing physical mutilation. The mind is softened before instruments are necessary. This environment-based approach marks a refinement in coercion. Venice achieves confessions without the messiness of bone-breaking devices. The architecture itself, a combination of heat, darkness, and isolation, becomes the instrument of control. Physical methods serve as backup rather than the primary tool of persuasion. Across your travels, certain constants emerge despite regional differences. Torture chambers are typically underground, amplifying isolation and fear. They operate in secrecy, yet their existence is widely known. Instruments differ, but the logic remains consistent. Anticipate suffering, prepare the mind, then apply calibrated pain. Compliance is the ultimate goal. The paradox of medieval torture is that secrecy and publicity coexist. Chambers are hidden from direct view, yet the knowledge of their presence circulates through society. Rumors, punishment displays, and survivor accounts sustain a network of fear that reinforces authority without constant application of violence. Ultimately, your journey reveals that torture functioned not only to extract confessions but to discipline society. Fear was institutionalized, embedded in legal codes, architecture, and procedure. By shaping both minds and bodies, medieval authorities ensured obedience, compliance, and the preservation of political power. The chambers, instruments, and environmental manipulations were all elements in a vast social apparatus of control. Across Europe, authorities employ both specialized instruments and ordinary objects repurposed to inflict pain. The rack, iron chairs, wedges, ropes, and heated implements may vary, but the effect remains consistent. Bodies stretched, twisted, and broken. It is not the tool alone, but the system of anticipation, isolation, and procedure that ensures compliance. Everywhere torture exists, it produces the same moral compromises in those who administer it. Executioners, interrogators, and guards must reconcile the suffering they cause with their societal roles. Some drown their conscience in drink. Others adopt dark humor. Isolation becomes the price of their profession, a shadow existence at the margins of society. A retired German executioner confides, "We are society's necessary sin. They need what we do but pretend not to see us doing it. We make possible their illusion of justice without barbarism." This paradox, delegating cruelty to specialized practitioners while maintaining collective denial, is central to understanding medieval torture. Society distances itself from cruelty, yet relies on it. Years later, circumstances allow your return to England. The Wars of the Roses have ended. London is both familiar and transformed. The Tower remains, still a site of coercion under Tudor authority. Your own past there feels simultaneously immediate and distant. Scars have healed, yet ache at touch, and memories persist like shadows in the corner of your mind. You avoid routes that would take you within sight of its walls. Candles burn at night to stave off dreams of dark chambers. These responses, invisible to the world, mark the enduring psychological imprint of the tower. The body may recover, but the mind retains a persistent knowledge of vulnerability, helplessness, and the capacity for human cruelty. Certain sensations, creaking wood, the smell of damp stone, the clank of metal, transport you instantly back to the tower. Panic surges as though the chambers are present again. These triggers diminish but never vanish completely, a testament to the profound and lasting nature of trauma. Your European travels confirm a disquieting truth. While methods vary, torture produces fundamentally similar effects everywhere. Pain, isolation, and psychological manipulation converge to break the human will. The instruments may change, but the underlying dynamic, the systematic erosion of resistance, remains universal. This universality suggests something disturbing about human societies. Across cultures, when power and control are at stake, communities develop systematic cruelty. Cultural particulars differ, but the fundamental mechanisms, fear, isolation, anticipation, and calibrated suffering, remain consistent. As you settle into the last chapter of your life in Tudor England, reports occasionally reach you of continued use of the tower. Under Henry VIII, political and religious prisoners endure the same chambers you survived decades earlier. Power remains inseparable from coercion, and the instruments of suffering remain ever ready. The lasting effect of the tower is not only physical scars but the psychological knowledge it imparts. The body may heal. The mind carries the memory of helplessness, cruelty, and moral compromise. Survivors bear a witness no society fully acknowledges, a witness to the dark continuity of human power and the enduring lessons of fear. An Askew, John Friday, Thomas More, names etched into the annals of Tudor religious controversy. Across decades, across regimes, torture claimed its victims. These continuities reveal its institutional nature. Cruelty persists not because of isolated malice, but because it serves structural purposes within systems of power and control. The horror lies not merely in devices or techniques, but in the normalization of suffering. Pain becomes procedure, cruelty codified, and the individual reduced to an object of bureaucratic function. In this system, human agony is predictable, regulated, and exploited to maintain authority. In your final years, you share your tale with trusted friends. Some respond with sympathy, others with disbelief. Most struggle to grasp how systematic cruelty could coexist with the moral and religious values medieval society proclaimed. The dissonance between professed virtue and sanctioned brutality becomes starkly evident. Medieval communities maintained a contradictory belief. Justice required humane treatment, yet torture was necessary to preserve security and extract truth. Most never confronted this directly. It remained a distant abstraction. Your lived experience, however, dismantles these comforting illusions. Having felt the thumbscrew's pressure, the rack's unrelenting tension, you understand firsthand how innocent flesh breaks under calculated pain. Truth, innocence, and resistance exist only at the mercy of design. They are fragile and fleeting within the chamber's logic. Your journey across Europe revealed a striking pattern. Regional differences in technique mask the same essential logic. Torture extracts confessions regardless of truth, punishes through process, and enforces compliance by creating exemplary fear. The human experience of the chamber transcends borders. The tower has taught you how civilized societies accommodate practices that contradict stated values. Compartmentalization and distancing allow ordinary citizens to coexist with systematic cruelty while preserving a sense of moral propriety. The knowledge gained within those chambers is unique. It cannot be imparted fully through words. It is a wisdom forged through fear, pain, and endurance. It explains why few could survive such an environment intact, not for lack of strength, but because the system is designed to overwhelm human endurance. The system's design is precise. Physical agony paired with psychological manipulation ensures even the strongest will falters. Endurance is not a measure of virtue, but a temporary anomaly against a structure built to crush it. The chambers teach a hard truth. Survival depends on compromise, compliance, or suffering beyond comprehension. As night falls on your final evening of remembrance, the memory of the torture chamber endures. It has revealed human fragility, the mechanics of institutional cruelty, and the capacity of societies to normalize suffering. These lessons, paid for with personal agony, remain indelibly yours, a witness to the darkest intersections of power, obedience, and human endurance. The true horror of medieval torture lies not in the extremity of any single method, but in the systematic combination of psychology, technology, and social authority designed to break human resistance. Against this relentless force, individual will, however strong, proves insufficient. As your life draws to its natural close in Tudor England, you reflect on the transition from medieval to early modern society. You have survived the tower's chambers, witnessed the arc of European judicial torture, and carry a perspective few others possess, a lived understanding of how suffering was institutionalized as a tool of justice. Grandchildren gather at your bedside, eager for tales of merchant adventures across Europe. But some stories are too dark to share. The memories of the tower's dungeons, Bonner's heated implements, and the echoes that still haunt your dreams are reserved for the deepest recesses of your mind. The question catches you off guard. How does one explain such darkness to a child? Yet the need for truth, even uncomfortable truth, outweighs the instinct to protect innocence through silence. The torture chamber is as much a symbolic space as a physical one. It reassures those in power that truth is accessible, even if this belief is maintained through suffering. Its existence communicates a social order where fear enforces compliance. The question strikes at the heart of medieval authority. How do you explain that rulers, charged with protecting their realm, sometimes wield cruelty as a tool to maintain order? You stress that authority is complicated. Violence or its threat is often embedded in governance, even when ideals suggest mercy or justice. The children grasp this at an instinctive level, though the full moral complexity is beyond their years. The lesson is one of caution, reflection, and the recognition of human fallibility. This last lesson, taught through experience, reflection, and careful storytelling, distills a lifetime of knowledge. It is a truth forged in pain, observed in history, and carried forward to shape how the next generation sees authority, justice, and human nature. Royal authority throughout medieval Europe depended on monopolizing legitimate violence, distinguishing between criminal cruelty and sanctioned force. Torture represents the most extreme expression of this distinction, transforming what would otherwise be criminal assault into official procedure. As you speak with your grandchildren, you realize you provide a perspective few of their generation will receive, an understanding of torture informed not by theory or rumor, but by direct experience. Painful knowledge, yet valuable for grasping the complexities of justice and cruelty. Through observation and experience, you understand how torture disciplines speech and action across a population, enforcing compliance without touching every individual. After the grandchildren leave, your mind drifts to the broader context. Born under the Lancastrians, surviving the Wars of the Roses, and now witnessing Tudor consolidation of power, you see how torture adapts to politics while preserving its core function. An Askew endured the rack so severely that her shoulders and hips dislocated, rendering her unable to walk to her execution. Carried in a chair, her body broken but her will intact, she refused to name fellow Protestants. Such stories reveal torture's paradox. It often fails against the dedicated, targeting the innocent and peripheral more effectively than the resolute. In your dreams that night, you return to the tower's underground chamber. This time, you are not the prisoner, but an observer, watching the procession of history's victims. From forgotten peasants to famous Tudor nobility, all endure the same fundamental experience, their suffering tied together across centuries. The vision spans centuries. You witness torture's gradual evolution, the slow imposition of legal restrictions in the 17th century as judges question its morality and reliability. Public opinion shifts. Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Beccaria denounce torture as ineffective and immoral. By the late 18th century, most European states officially abolished judicial torture. Prussia in 1740, France in 1780, others following. Yet abolition on paper does not always mean elimination in practice. Hidden abuses continue, serving the same fundamental purposes beneath official oversight. Your final reflection is stark. The architecture of fear and coercion endures beyond individual rulers or devices. Torture teaches lessons about authority, obedience, and human vulnerability. It is not merely cruelty, but a mirror revealing the structural dynamics of power. As you lie in your final bed, you understand that this knowledge, painful, bitter, yet illuminating, is yours alone to pass down. Few in history will have witnessed, felt, and survived the full machinery of institutionalized suffering. This insight, gained at terrible personal cost, ensures that the human capacity for cruelty and for resilience will not be forgotten. The vision carries you further still to archaeological discoveries centuries after your time. Researchers uncover the physical evidence of medieval torture chambers, the iron fittings where racks were anchored, the drainage channels for water torture, the hook points for strapado ropes. These material remains provide a tangible connection between past and future, confirming what written records sometimes obscure. In Oxford, medieval prisons reveal specialized restraint mechanisms. In German castle dungeons, implements preserved by dry conditions emerge. In Spanish administrative buildings, chambers of the Inquisition are unearthed. These discoveries illuminate the technological infrastructure of judicial torture, often overlooked by historians focused on legal theory. Modern scientists study the effects of historical torture methods. They confirm what you learn through experience: that techniques like the strapado dislocate shoulders, that the rack separates joints when operated as described, and that water torture produces the sensation of drowning without necessarily causing death. These confirmations validate the historical record, which future generations might otherwise dismiss as exaggeration. They provide material evidence for experiences that many would prefer to consider impossible, showing that human ingenuity was applied systematically to cause maximal pain without death. Most importantly, your dream vision shows how future generations understand torture in psychological terms unavailable in your time. Concepts like trauma, post-traumatic stress, and psychological torture gain recognition, explaining effects you experienced but could not name. Flashbacks, nightmares, and triggered responses to certain stimuli. Where medieval theory focused almost exclusively on the body, future generations recognize the mind as equally significant, both in terms of torturous methods and lasting effects. The psychological dimension becomes central to understanding the total impact of judicial torture. You awaken from this prophetic dream with a historical perspective impossible in waking life. Your individual suffering forms one thread in a tapestry spanning centuries, from ancient practices through medieval refinement to eventual official rejection, though clandestine use persists. This perspective offers cold comfort but crucial context. Your suffering was neither senseless nor isolated. It was part of long-standing institutional practices that would eventually face questioning and reform. Individual pain is not minimized, but placed within broader patterns of social evolution. The next morning, contemplating your dream vision, you decide to record your experiences, not for immediate publication, but for future generations. Using affordable Tudor-era paper, you begin to write your account of the tower's chambers and your European observations. This act of documentation itself represents an important historical process. Most torture victims left no records. Their suffering survives only through official documents created by the very authorities who authorized their torment. By recording your account, you preserve an unmediated witness perspective for the future. Bureaucratic records, torture warrants, interrogation transcripts, confessions, tell partial stories at best. They omit the lived reality of the chamber. Your account, combining personal experience with comparative observations across Europe, offers something rare: a victim's perspective on institutionalized suffering. Though you cannot know whether your writings will survive for future readers, the act of creating them feels important, a testimony against forgetting. Each scratch of quill on paper preserves the truths the official record obscures. As you write, you consider the final wisdom to impart, the central understanding your journey through Europe's torture chambers provides. After much reflection, you settle on this: torture reveals more about the societies that institutionalize it than about the individuals who endure it. Torture functions as a mirror, reflecting social values, fears, and contradictions. The chamber exposes tensions between stated principles and actual practices, between theological ideals and administrative realities, between human empathy and institutional requirements. In medieval Christian Europe, a religion centered on a tortured savior simultaneously condemned cruelty and authorized systematic suffering. Societies that celebrated mercy in literature and art maintained chambers designed to maximize pain. Legal systems ostensibly pursuing truth employed methods that reliably produced falsehoods under duress. These contradictions reveal medieval torture not as an aberration, but as a manifestation of social tensions between mercy and security, individual rights and collective protection, bodily integrity and state authority. The chamber exists where these tensions converge, a physical space where abstract contradictions become concrete practices, where philosophical and moral debates are enacted through human suffering. Medieval torture eventually faced questioning and reform, not primarily from moral evolution, but from practical reconsideration. As judicial systems developed more sophisticated standards of evidence, torture's unreliability became problematic. Political legitimacy began requiring consent rather than fear, making openly brutal practices a liability. Official abandonment never meant elimination. When sanctioned torture became politically inconvenient, it went underground, continuing in practice while denied in principle. This pattern of official disavowal coupled with clandestine continuation characterizes torture's evolution from the Enlightenment forward. These insights about institutional contradictions, pragmatic reforms, and the gap between principle and practice constitute wisdom purchased at terrible personal cost. They offer understanding to future generations of how sophisticated societies accommodate practices that contradict their stated values. As you finish your written account, sealing it within your family Bible for future generations, you realize that the most important legacy of your experience isn't the physical suffering endured, but the perspective gained. You have seen behind a curtain most never peer past, witnessed the machinery of power at its most naked and direct. This perspective allows you to recognize similar patterns in less extreme social practices, the ways institutions everywhere employ fear, pain, and reward to shape behavior. The chamber represents not an aberration, but the most extreme expression of control mechanisms operating throughout society in subtler forms. In your final days, as Tudor England continues its religious and political transformations, you find a measure of peace in this historical understanding. Your suffering, while personal and profound, connects to broader patterns stretching backward and forward through time. The chamber's logic, using pain to extract compliance, exists wherever power operates without restraint, manifesting differently across cultures and eras but maintaining consistent psychological foundations. This connection between individual experience and universal patterns offers meaning to otherwise senseless suffering. The torture chamber becomes not just a site of personal trauma, but a lens for understanding power's operation throughout human society. As your life draws to its close, you leave behind visible legacies: your business, family, possessions, and an invisible legacy, your understanding of systematic cruelty and institutional contradiction, preserved in your written account for future readers. Your story ends where it began, in England under a monarchy that still maintains the Tower's chambers within a society shaped by the distant threat they represent. Your journey through Europe has brought you full circle geographically while transforming you intellectually. You now see systematic cruelty not as aberration, but as institutional practice. You understand torture's social functions beyond individual cases, and the divergence between official narratives and lived experience. Though you could not save yourself from the chamber's attentions, your insights might help future generations recognize and resist similar patterns. The wisdom earned through suffering becomes your legacy, a testament to how even humanity's darkest practices can yield understanding when critically examined. The torture chamber, terrible as it was, provided education unavailable elsewhere, direct confrontation with power's fundamental relationship to pain, fear, and compliance. As night falls on your final evening, your thoughts return to that first descent into the Tower's underground chambers. The fear you felt then has transformed into something more complex: comprehension, historical perspective, and the hard-won knowledge of how societies wield suffering. This comprehension doesn't erase the nightmares or heal the physical scars, but it provides context that makes them bearable. Threads connect individual suffering to collective patterns and historical processes. Your experience in the chamber, while intensely personal, participates in institutional practices spanning centuries and continents. With this understanding providing cold comfort, you drift towards sleep one final time. Your journey through medieval Europe's darkest institutions is complete. The wisdom gained at such terrible cost now passes to future generations who might recognize similar patterns without experiencing the chambers firsthand. Perhaps that represents the most valuable legacy of all: the possibility that understanding history's darkest practices might help prevent their recurrence. By comprehending why medieval torture chambers existed and how they functioned, future societies might better recognize and resist institutional cruelty in their own eras. This hope, that painful knowledge might serve a preventive purpose, offers meaning to otherwise senseless suffering. The Chamber's legacy becomes not just trauma, but education. Not just damage, but insight. Through this transformation of experience into understanding, even history's darkest chapters provide illumination for the future. As your story concludes, this insight remains its final offering. Confronting rather than ignoring humanity's capacity for systematic cruelty provides the best hope for eventually transcending it. The medieval torture chamber, properly understood, becomes not just a site of historical horror, but a lesson in recognizing and resisting similar patterns wherever and whenever they emerge. With this wisdom as your legacy, your journey through medieval Europe's torture chambers concludes a dark but instructive chapter in the broader human story of justice, power, suffering, and eventual reform. The experience nobody would survive even a day within becomes, through historical perspective, a lens for understanding dynamics that persist long after the chamber's official abandonment. And there, in the space between historical specificity and universal patterns, lies the chamber's most important lesson. Understanding our darkest practices offers the best hope for eventually moving beyond them toward forms of justice that maintain security without requiring systematic suffering. Your life ends in Tudor England, but your legacy persists. From individual suffering to historical understanding, the Tower's chambers have become more than memory. They are evidence, education, and caution. The lessons learned from their horrors illuminate the path toward societies that might secure order without cruelty. And in that final insight, your story closes, a testament to endurance, comprehension, and the potential of human understanding to transcend even the darkest practices of power.